long time, I was scared to share my true color, to be who I truly was. I was hiding in the story I was reading, fearful of what people would think about me. But this end now. I have stopped running. I decide to accept my diversity. Today, I will share our story of neurodiversity and mental health awareness. Welcome on the ADHD Melly Show. Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well today. Today, we're going to talk to Elise Micheals. We're going to talk about mental health in men. But before we start, I just want to say thank you to my sponsor, 0DB. 0DB is a great drink if you want to concentrate and just be focused in your own mind. It's helping just relax and just keeping the right flow of ideas, etc., etc. I really like it because it helps me just focus on what I need to be done and not stress and getting anxiety of everything that's happening in my life right now. So I really like it for that. So I'm going to bring Elise right now. So hello, Elise. How are
Hello.
you? Great. So, first of all, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really grateful that you could make it. And we're going to talk about, like I said, how to help men find purposes by healing subconscious trauma. I think is a very good idea of subject because we're always thinking that men are strong, they're powerful, and they can beat everything, but it's not necessarily true, right? So, first of all, just introduce yourself, what you're doing. Talk to me a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, of course. So thank you so much for having me on the show. One of my clients was actually recently diagnosed with ADHD, and I've been able to watch his life transform over the last few weeks. So just thought I'd put that in there as a side note that I love to be here and to support this community. But as she said, I'm a men's mental health coach. I've been doing that for just about 2 years now, working exclusively with men. That wasn't my initial intention. I just was posting videos on LinkedIn, and men ended up being the only ones who asked me for help. And I just realized that they don't have a lot of mental health support. Like you said, we see men as these strong beings who are immune to things like pain and mental illness and depression, but that's not true. We're all human. And when we can actually help each other out, we create a stronger humanity. So love what I do and happy to be here.
That's a great thing. So men just came to you and you say, "Oh, I'm going to do just only for men because they are the only people that are contacting me," right? That's what you decided to do. And what's the main difference in coaching men versus women?
Well, there's a lot of differences just because biologically men and women have different ways that they process things in the brain. So I had to understand how men receive information best versus women. But I also had to understand the societal standards that are placed on men versus women. Women have a lot of standards that we feel are necessary to live up to, like looks and, the way that we operate in social settings and etiquette and things like that, whereas men have a completely different set of traits. And so just understanding those concepts going into it helped me formulate the specific things that I'm teaching them, the action items, the concepts, so that they feel comfortable. Because it's okay for women to talk about their problems and their issues, right? But it's not necessarily for men. So creating a space that feels safe for men to actually talk about the things that are ailing them.
Yeah, and do you think it's a bit the way they are raised, like they always see their mother doing dishes, cleaning, taking care of the household, and you see the husband, the father always working and getting the money and always being there and strong and everything. Is a bit about the way they were raised that maybe they're not going to talk about their problem because they never see any models of men doing it.
Absolutely. You absolutely hit the nail on the head.
And what do you do for men when they're a little bit scared of talking about their problem? Because yes, you're the professional, but sometimes men never did this. So what will you suggest to men to do first to just being okay about talking about mental health issues?
Yeah, so usually the men who come to me have feel some sort of safety with me because they've seen my videos. So it's almost kind of like you feel like you already know someone when you see them so much on social media. So I have that. But if I were to suggest anything for men who have never spoken about their problems before and they're not speaking to me, find someone who you feel like accepts you for who you are. Because the only way we can feel safe divulging these secrets about ourselves is to find someone who we feel like is going to accept us. And that's where sometimes a coach or a therapist really does come in handy, because they're going to be non-judgmental. They're not going to put you on a pedestal or put you in a category, right? And sometimes that's our only safe place, because if you are in your life right now when you feel like you can't talk about your problems, chances are nobody in your life has made you feel like you can talk about your problems, right? So at that point, it might be best to look outside of your circle and find a professional or find a friend who's going to accept you for you.
So what's the warning sign that men should talk? When they just feel, what is the I'm going to reformulate that. What's the warning sign you're going to get a burnout, or you're going to feel that you need professional help?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually like to say that we shouldn't wait until that moment in order to start talking about our problems or taking care of ourselves, because that's what happens, right? Is we do not take care of ourselves until we're at the edge of burnout. And you'll know you're about to burn out when you start feeling really lethargic, no matter how much sleep you get. You don't have any creative ideas. You kind of feel like every day is very meh, or you hate it. You don't want to go to work anymore. You want to check out of your life. And a lot of these things can mix in with feelings of anxiety and depression and even physical symptoms like stomach issues, or always feeling tired, or always feeling exhausted. No matter how much even physically, you can take care of yourself. You can go to the gym, you can take vitamins, you can eat healthy. But if you are just always mentally fatigued, you've already hit the point of burnout. And you need to not only talk to someone about it, but also you need to change the habits that you have in your life, because that's what got you there. And you can't keep doing the same things and expecting a new result.
Absolutely, I do absolutely agree about that, because I almost been burned out myself, and that's exactly the same time that I felt, and I was just like, I don't understand. I sleep, I eat okay, I go to the gym. What's happening to me? Because people don't know what it is a burnout. People are not informed of what's going to happen if they work all the time. And again, when you're a man, you have that thing that you need to work and work and work and work. You have to perform, you have to do this, you have to being the best in the world. And sometimes they get better salaries, and they get, this is another subject, but they get more bigger positions sometimes, and they have kids to feed if the woman is at home, because they just got kids, and they just have that pressure in their mind. So what would you suggest to a man that, I don't know, the woman doesn't work because they just have kids right now, and they just feel like they are the man of the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a stress that a lot of men run into, where they're the breadwinner, they have children, they're like, I can't just abandon my responsibilities. But we also have to look at what type of mindset that is as well, because it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And that's where a lot of people go. They're like, either I have to burn myself out, make all the money, do absolutely
Yeah.
everything, or I'm going to lose my job and I'm not going to make any money. My family's going to starve. But those are two extreme perspectives. And the goal is not to just quit our job and to stop our
Yeah.
responsibilities. It's to find some balance, maybe not even by doing less work, but by adding in more things that make us feel good, that make us feel relaxed, that make us feel whole. If you can take just 30 minutes for yourself in the morning to read or to journal or to structure your day so that it's easier, you don't actually have to do everything in order to get results in your life, right? You can still take care of your
Yeah.
family and feel successful. And I know it might sound crazy to a lot of men who might be listening to this either live or after, but you can have both.
Yeah, and that's very important, because you only see women going to the spa, going girls'
Yeah.
night, etc. But men deserve that too. If it's
Yeah.
not girly to go get a massage because you need it, or simply going to read, reading is not a girl thing. Everything, a lot of thing of self care. Men can think that it's only for women, but it's not the case. If women can be successful with their family and all the stress around it, because it's a job to have children, it's a job to raise them right, and women can have a lot of mental stress to be around that. And if women are capable of stopping and get girls night, you're allowed to get boys night. And that's another subject that sometimes in couples it can be a little bit difficult. Why are you leaving, but they need to explain to their wife or their girlfriend that they need that time to just focus on themselves. So what will you say to those men that struggle with in their family of and they have difficulty with their wife or their girlfriend, that they need some time for themselves without feeling they let it they let them down?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a really great point that you made, that sometimes couples can be like, what do you mean you need a break? And if you're having that conversation in your relationship where what it really means is like someone feels like the relationship responsibilities are imbalanced, right? And
Mhm.
unfortunately, like if you're having those conversations in your relationship where it feels unbalanced and the other person doesn't understand and you feel like you have to explain why you need alone time, chances are the relationship foundation probably isn't very healthy. So at that point, I would suggest some couples counseling, right?
Yeah.
Because ideally, your partner, if you're explaining like, hey, I need some alone time, I'm understanding I'm very stressed, like, can I have this night and you have that night, right? You're making it even, you're making it fair. Ideally, your partner understands, because they understand that when you're happy and feeling good, then the relationship is happy and feeling good,
Hmm.
right? Because if we're both just two stressed out people in the relationship, it's going to be a very stressful,
Hmm.
horrible relationship, right?
Absolutely. And what women should do to support their man?
Yeah. So, I mean, for any person, this is always what I say is we never have to fix someone or make sure that we're trying to solve their problems. I know it can be really hard for people because we see someone who might be struggling or having a hard time. This is like a really big problem for men because they're fixers and they're problem solvers, and they want to fix all the problems that their wife or their partner has, right?
Hmm.
And so if a woman's listening to this, she might be thinking the same thing. What can I do for my husband? I know he's struggling. I want to do this for him, this, and this. The best thing that you can do for your partner is help yourself, right? Get in a good place and make yourself happy, because at the end of the day, your partner is not your responsibility. But if you want to be a support system, a very strong support system for your partner who's a male, create space in that environment that feels safe where they can talk about their problems. Because a lot of men do not tell women their problems because women have a negative reaction to men showing emotion. They will think it's disgusting or why are you
Hmm.
doing that? And they perpetuate the cycle of men not sharing. So if you're going to be open about actually supporting your partner, make sure it's open in all the areas, not just the way society says your husband or partner has to be, right?
So things need to change in societies to allow men to share a little bit more about their feelings, and it's okay for men to cry, but in sociality it's not good, in community if some men cry they are called they're not called right, and people just don't like to see that. But what should change in society so men could talk a little bit more about what they are feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think even just a very easy way to make a shift is to realize that crying doesn't always necessarily mean sad, right? I mean, emotions are just energy in motion. And if we can just understand that emotions are just energy, it takes away the gender of it, right? Masculine, feminine. Like men are only this way, and this way, and women are this way, and this way. So if we can take the gender out of emotions because they don't choose a gender, then I think it will just be easier to accept and understand. Because the thing is, when we don't feel like we can cry, right, our body's just expressing emotion, then we bottle it up inside or we express it in the only other acceptable ways that we can, right? And when you put a cooker on the stove and you put the lid on and it can't have any steam escape, eventually it explodes, right?
Yeah.
So we need to have some safe way to release emotion and tension. And sometimes people cry. sometimes, it just gets it out, and then you don't have to worry about it ever again. But if you bottle it inside, it creates really big problems.
Absolutely. And sometimes the problem comes with the friends too. That is the circle of that person and sometimes it's not necessarily healthy for emotion, All the men are like so strong and everything, and the friends are the same. So what should a man do? They may be very like that person very much, they trust that friend, etc. But what should do a man to another man that they don't feel good? How should they start? How should they just talk about those emotions to somebody that seems so manly, and maybe they feel the same thing that he does?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of going back to what I first said about when you first want to talk
Mm-hmm.
to someone, find that person first so you have confidence and
Mm-hmm.
validation in your feelings. Um, and so if you want to talk to other men about how you feel, start with the people who you feel like are going to accept you, who aren't going to, call you weak or a pussy or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
then second, you will get to a place where you don't care if people say those things to you, because you'll understand that they're part of a programming that a lot of society has had, right? And if they're going to say those things to you, they're not ideally part of your friend group, right? You want to create a friend group that's full of positivity and support and whatever, right? So if somebody is not um, supporting you and they're saying those things to you as a man, you need to find some different male friends.
Absolutely, but sometimes it's hard to find those friends because you don't they are all the same, and sometimes it can be hard. So, how do you know that person is a good friend? What is going to be the sign that you can share with them?
That I mean, that's left up to everybody's individual discretion. I mean, if you feel comfortable, you just have to see what the results are, really.
Yeah.
And if you want more friends, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily put the perspective on that it's hard or that there's not very many of them, because there are so many men who want to share and want to be vulnerable, but they don't because they're afraid, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes if we're just the first ones who come out and do it, we can create that space ourselves, and we end up attracting to us those men, right? So you can always find groups, or there's men's mental health groups. I have a men's group where men come together and we talk about stuff. So you can find groups like that. You can find, whatever activities you like, a biking group, a sports group, a math group, whatever you like. And generally, birds of a feather flock together. So, building some kind of rapport and foundation always helps bridging that gap for vulnerability.
Absolutely, that's right, and I agree about that. And what should men, if I give you an example, they have boys, and they want to teach the boys that it's okay to show emotion and tell what they are feeling. What should a man do to their son? And what they should say actually to engage conversation? Because sometimes when you're a teen and you want to make your teen talk, what should be their approach?
So I just have to put a disclaimer out there that I'm not a man, and so I don't want any men who are watching this to feel like I'm just giving the advice of a father or anything like that. I don't know what the perfect man should do, right? I think everybody has different
Hmm.
religions and beliefs and things that they want to endow into their children. But I think the very, very best way that you can be a father who gives lessons to his sons is by demonstrating by example, right? How do you treat yourself? How do you talk to yourself? How do you act? Because
Hmm.
that's what your son is really going to pay attention to. And that's what they're going to take on as their template. Oh, dad does this for himself. Dad treats women like this. Dad treats other men like this. Dad treats animals like this. That's how they suck in how
Hmm.
they think that they should treat. It's not just about one or two conversations that you have with them about the birds and the bees and, things like that. It's like they watch what you do. So, I don't know what the best father is. I don't know what the best man is. That's up for every man to
Of
determine
course.
themselves. So if you want to pass it on to your child, make sure you're doing it for yourself.
Absolutely. And you're an example. You're the person that knows best, or you try to know best. So if you're showing that you're vulnerable, if you show that it's okay to cry, it's okay to feel sad and feeling overwhelmed about life in general, about your job, about your private life, and not necessarily cry in front of your children if you're not feeling that comfortable, but at least being there for them. And being a good father for me, it's to, if your boy is crying about something, not saying that you're a pussy, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, and being an example on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Avoiding the shame cycle
Mm-hmm.
that if you do this, you're weak or you're a pussy or,
Mm-hmm.
that's only for girls, because then you just perpetuate this cycle of my natural inclinations to express are not okay. And that's how people start to judge themselves and then judge others. And we create kind of like this cycle of people who want to hurt other people.
Absolutely. So I see that you have books behind you. What will you suggest a man to read?
So there's a lot of books that I would suggest men to read. Actually, I don't know if we'll link any of my social profiles here, but I have actually like a list of like 30 different books in different categories that men can read based upon what they're going through. But a really, really good book I recommend to all men is No More Mr. Nice Guy. It was written by a psychologist who worked with men for many years and developed this system for men, because he just noticed in all of his sessions and in the group sessions, the same things coming up over and over and over again, and how when we don't dedicate time to ourselves, we end up, manipulating others to get what we want. And we don't do it on purpose, but this
Mm-hmm.
is just what happens when we're not taking care of ourselves. So that's an amazing book. No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Amazing. I'm going to put it on the description of the YouTube channel. So if you want to see that book, I'm going to put you an Amazon link where you can
Okay,
buy it.
perfect.
I'm going to do that. I'm also going to put all your social media on the description as well, so people will be able to follow you, and that group where men can share their feelings too on LinkedIn, I guess it is.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm sorry, what was that last thing you just said? Men can share their feelings on LinkedIn?
No, no, you told me that you had a group where men can just talk and share their feelings. That is on LinkedIn or no, on Facebook?
No, it's actually a private group that I have
Okay.
via Slack. So we just started our second round like a couple weeks ago. Eventually, there might be like a free group where everybody can just kind of join and kind of get
Mm-hmm.
together and support each other. Right now, it's like a course. So, like every week, there's a new module, a new session that they're watching, learning, understanding how to control their physiology. And there's a lot of neuroscience in there. So, it's pretty in depth, but other men are in there to go through it with you.
So what kind of services are you offering?
I have the group coaching and then I have one on one coaching. And soon there's going to be more of like an advanced coaching for executive businessmen who also want to have kind of like a collaboration with other businessmen, people who they
Mm-hmm.
can talk to, not just about emotions and stuff with, but business and things like that.
That's amazing. Can you talk to me a little bit more about your group coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you like to know?
Mostly everything in a small amount of time, of course, but talk to me a little bit more of what you teaching those men.
Yeah, so the group coaching essentially is right now a 10-week, 10-session course where I guide them through a small module each week based upon neuroscience, neurolinguistics programming, trauma therapy, the physiology of the body. So there's some type of structure in it every single week that they look at, that I've formulated based upon working with the men I have, that we do these things in these order to get you the best results in your life. And ideally, we hit 4 different pillars: physical, mental, relational, and spiritual, so that they can, at the end, have the tools to understand how to better their relationships, how to do better in business, how to do better in their personal life, and how to just improve their physical world and their spiritual world. So, kind of, it's kind of like a very condensed life coaching group package, I would say.
So what in those on those subjects is harder for men to just realize and learn? What is more is the hardest for men to just bring into their own life actually?
The relationship one is always the hardest I see men struggle with, because they've been taught not to talk about their emotions or really feel them, they are missing like a deep connection within themselves. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard for them to connect with other people. So relationships, especially like a romantic partner, they want to be close, but they're so afraid to be vulnerable, to open up, to share with their partner, that it kind of prevents them from having that experience. So it's always a learning process with that one.
Absolutely, I do understand that a lot. And what would you suggest to those men to just bring their self to another partner, a new partner, and they want to close up, they want to be closer to that person, but it's a new relationship, and you feel that you have still this deep connection, but at the same time it's new and everything is just going. When you have a new romantic relationship, everything is beautiful and butterfly, but how men should what should do men to stay their foot into earth and just talk more personally too.
Yeah, so when anybody is entering into a new relationship, sometimes we can get swept up in all the good feelings and all the love in the beginning, right? But
Hmm.
take it slow, and start with your core values, what your mission is. Make sure you're not losing yourself in favor of the relationship, because I think a lot of us can do that. Is we find a relationship and we immediately really want it to work because it's going so well, so then we sacrifice things that we love about ourselves or that we like to do
Hmm.
so that we can make it work. So you really have to stay true to your path and to who you are. And not everybody deserves to hear your story. That's the truth. So don't just overshare now that you're starting to share your emotions and
Hmm.
things. Take things slow, make sure that they fit with your life, and then you'll know when the right time is to share those inner thoughts.
Thank you so much for that. So if there was a question or a subject that I haven't talked today, what will you add?
I don't know, I feel like we went over a lot of topics today. I'm not sure I could add anything else. Maybe just the fact that, like, since the title is healing subconscious trauma,
Hmm.
what I work with on men is, like, you come to me with these surface level issues, but really it's usually a result of some underlying problem, right? That's why I say
Yes,
subconscious trauma, because 95% of how we run is the subconscious. So
hmm.
remember that sometimes if you could have solved it, you would have already. So if you can't solve it, chances are you can't actually see the problem. So never shame yourself for wanting to get help
Hmm.
or see a therapist or get a coach, because they're just going to give you the fast pass to the next part of your life. And it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to suffer. Things can be so much easier than they are. So always, always, always advocate for yourself, and, don't be afraid to make things better.
Joanna said that it was a lot of valuable info here, and she's happy that you
Thank
will
you.
talk. So, if we talk a little bit more about healing subconscious trauma, our men should know what their trauma is. They don't necessarily know that it's because of certain event they're like this.
Yeah, they won't know. That's my job in my coaching, is to, but you'll know if something might be related to trauma if you just have like a lot of recurring cycles in your life, like you keep getting in the same relationships, you feel stuck in your business, like you can't reach that next level, and there's like a lot of limiting beliefs. You'll know that something is in your subconscious that is there, but you don't really know what it is, or you don't know how to overcome it. You've tried all these tactics, you've done this and that, but nothing has worked. Usually that's a sign that something is programmed in your subconscious that's just operating without you noticing, and you dive in from there.
I'm not going to ask you all your secret, but how do you know what is the problem?
Um, well, I mean, it's not really a secret. It's just I have the ability to be very intuitive. I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional family where attuning to people's needs was very necessary.
Hmm.
I didn't actually know that was how intuition could really be created, but I just got very, very good at understanding people. And I don't even have to see anyone. If they send me a text message, I can understand how they're feeling, like the energy. So
Hmm.
part of it is just my natural ability to know and understand people. And then the other part is obviously training. I took, to solve my own healing, to
Hmm.
notice my own subconscious trauma, I took trauma therapy, relationship science, CBT, REBT, like tons and tons and tons of neuroscience classes and things like that, in order to understand that, oh, wow, your brain has these programs, has these functions, and there actually is a solution, right? So many times people say, oh, I'm going to have this forever, or this is going to be like this forever. And that's not true at all. The solution can come fast and it can come easy.
Yeah, and it depends if you want to change, because a lot of
Yes.
people, you cannot change people, but you need to want that as well, you know. And if a man is blocked by their past trauma, and they just don't know how to talk about it, how to express it, what will be the tip to just go ahead gently, you know?
I say just like find a coach or find a therapist, honestly. They can help you, they can bridge a gap. You don't have to do things by yourself. When you try to do things by yourself, that's when you get burnt out and frustrated, you know?
So have you learned that, people? Just go see a therapist, go see Elise. She's going to be happy to help you with
Yeah,
all
that's
your problems. And if you feel dull and you feel like you have no energy, don't go through the burnout, because if you're burnout, man, you won't be able to work anymore. You won't be
yeah.
able to your problem is not going to be solved, and it's going to be worse and worse and worse and worse, and you don't want that in your life, you know?
Absolutely. You put the nail right on the head. And as you said before, you felt on the point of burnout too, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, mostly because of COVID, and I couldn't find clients. I didn't have job. I didn't have anything, and that's not necessarily because you work too hard. It's also because you feel like you're in a hedge and you cannot just find a way to get out. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought that point up. Sometimes it's not because you're working so hard. Sometimes you're burned out because you don't feel fulfilled in your life, right? Life like
Hmm.
burns you out because there's nothing giving, right? You feel drained, and that's not a good place to be either.
Yeah, that's why I create the ADHD Millie show. It helps me a lot healing my own trauma, because I have so many trauma. You have no idea. I totally know what it is, a dysfunction family, and yeah.
Okay. What are you, if I can ask, what are you doing to help heal your trauma? Obviously you have the show, but did you engage with a therapist or anything like that?
I actually didn't yet, because I haven't find the right one yet, and
Okay.
sometimes it's hard to just find the person that is not going to be, like I said in some of my show. Some therapists are just going to be there sitting down and ask you to talk about everything, and you're not feeling necessarily comfortable because you don't know them, you know. And yes, you know, there's a therapist, but and at the same time, when I was younger, I was forced to go to therapists, and that's not the right
Mm.
thing to do too. And I know that's one of my trauma, because I had very bad experience because of it. And yeah, so I have a little bit trust issue on that still.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing it. And that makes so much sense. That you said it's hard to find, a good fit, because yeah, sometimes that's definitely true. I got lucky with my therapist. I found her on BetterHelp, which I think is a really good source for people who, excuse me, need to find someone online. And
Hmm.
also, it was really budget friendly for me at the time. And you kind of take a little quiz so that you match up with someone who has maybe the skill sets that you need
Hmm.
um, to deal with the life circumstances you've been through. But also, I love that you said, as a little kid, you were sent to therapy, and that can be so traumatizing because your parents put you, they're really trying to help you. Um, but also you're kind of in this room with a stranger and you don't know what's going on, and they just ask you to divulge all your secrets, and it can be so uncomfortable if you don't know what's going on. And so um, that's why I said, if you're going to divulge your secrets to someone, make sure that you trust them, make sure that they accept you. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's not just about sitting in a room one-on-one where we're just talking about our issues and stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, okay, well, we're here, like, what do you want to talk about? And we start from there, and then usually it spirals into deeper and deeper questions, right, until they get comfortable with you.
And what should you do to, if I am to go to the therapist, what should I do, or what should a man do? Because it's almost the same thing. The gender doesn't matter on
Mm-hmm.
this question. Is more, what should put, I need to put myself in a good mind to share, but what will be the first step for me to be able to not only trust, but being able to talk, that's the hardest, is just talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, research the therapist before you go or before you have a consultation call. Because I think sometimes we just pick whoever looks good or pick whoever our friends suggest or something like that. But really, therapy is kind of like, it's kind of like dating. Like you have to find a good fit. And sometimes you don't know until after the first session or after the second session that maybe this isn't a good fit. But a lot of times people will say, oh, well, therapy didn't work for me because I didn't like them. But you didn't really give it a chance, right? You just said
Yeah.
therapy didn't work after one person wasn't a good fit, but kind of keep trying. A lot of them have free consultations that you can kind of test out their services or see what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just keep that in mind when you're going, that you're looking for something too. It's not just they're the boss and they know all the answers. Make sure you have a good fit and ask them some valid questions when you go in, kind of like an interview.
And don't forget that you are the client.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
You're the client, so you can fire them if you don't feel it's a good fit. But at the same time, you have to trust yourself as well, and trust them and allow yourself to trust them. And that, I think, is the hardest.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So what should you do if you have trust issues? Somebody that has trust issues. They cannot talk to anyone because they can.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's the same thing as anything else, right? The only way that you can overcome your trust issues is by practicing trust. So you have to keep showing up, and hopefully your therapist can help you kind of work through that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it just takes time. Just trust that it takes time, and that with the time and the practice, everything will find its balance.
Thank you so much for just talking, tell me all those things. And if you have more questions, you can ask me. It doesn't. I think it's easier for me to talk in public with people than in a room, one to one. Sometime I don't know why, but for me it's easier to just share my story online to a bunch of strangers than to my friends and family. I don't know why, but it's always been like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it can feel less intimate almost, because if it's just
Yeah.
one on one, you're like, oh, they're looking at me. But if it's online, you're like, whatever, this is like a thing that I'm sharing and no one's going to judge. Like, even if they do judge me, I don't care, like, so yeah, it's funny that you would say that.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. So do you have a last word that you want to share to other people before we leave that session today?
I just appreciate so much you bringing me on, and any men who are willing to dive into that journey, remember that you're not alone. Many men want to help themselves with mental health, and you're doing a better thing for the next generation of men when you do that, right? They're going to learn different things because you chose to learn something else. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody that watched the show today, and I hope to see you next Friday. Bye, everybody.